Levy Act 2023, Act 1112, takes effect from Thursday. That's tomorrow, February 1, 2024. We have details for you, plus some reactions to this notice by the Ghana Revenue Authority here on Hot Edition. Also, the organized labor to decide on its next line of action as deadline for government to reverse the intended imposition of the value-added tax on electricity consumption expires today, January 31. We have details plus the latest in business, sports, and entertainment coming up over the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition. Also, 76% of men are unaware of their HIV status. Quite alarming. The details of the report from the Ghana Statistical Service. Many aspects of the report we'll be talking about this evening also indicate that 2 out of 10 married men had 2 or more sexual partners in 2022. That's according to the Ghana Statistical Service. Here, we'll be giving details of it on Hot Edition Plus. I don't support LGBTQ. It's against my faith. That's John Dramani Mahama making clear his position on the LGBTQ debate. We have these and more on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Stay with us here. I am Alfred Ocansey. Welcome. Let's get into the details now here on Hot Edition as the deadline given by the Trade Union Congress for government to withdraw the proposed 15% value-added tax on electricity consumption elapses today, January 31. Now, organized labor earlier warned members would advise themselves if the government failed to heed their demand. However, the Ministry of Finance in a statement assured organized labor of an amicable resolution of their concerns. Portions of the statement from the Finance Ministry reads, extensive dialogue will be held with organized labor and other key stakeholders in the coming weeks to ensure stakeholder buy-in. The ministry therefore appeals to organized labor and all stakeholders, including the ECG and NEDCO, to exercise restraint to facilitate a constructive dialogue towards a quick resolution of the impasse. We note the progress the country is making in the implementation of the post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, including posting higher than programmed growth rates and targets, declining inflation, improvement in fiscal and external positions, a more stable exchange rate, and the declining monetary policy rate. Government hereby reiterates its commitment to working with all stakeholders in order to sustain these gains and ensure macroeconomic stability and inclusive growth. That's portions of the statement from the Finance Ministry. Meanwhile, the Consumer Protection Agency wants government to withdraw the 15% VAT on electricity. Here's COC Deputy General Secretary General Joshua Ansa speaking earlier on 3FM.
What organized labor demanded at our last press conference was a complete withdrawal, total withdrawal of the 50% VAT on the light bill. I think that if the minister is now coming back to say that he's going to engage organized labor and other stakeholders for a buy-in, I think it's an afterthought. We think that the minister directed that 15% should be actually applied on our light bills, and which we resisted. And we are still resisting that until that total withdrawal is done. We still stand by our decision that if by the end of today, if government fails to withdraw, organized labor will advise itself. What I mean is that the Finance Minister has issued a directive, and we are saying that directive is unpopular and that it must be totally withdrawn. Now, it has not been withdrawn, and another message has come that we want to engage us for a buy-in. Which means that buy-in means that they still want to convince us to accept the 50% VAT on our light bill. And I'm saying that we demanded that the directive must be withdrawn. I think the first thing first, we actually withdraw. The withdrawal must happen, then we will be prepared to engage. It was a collective decision, and organized labor will meet to actually look at the issue, the message that you just read to us, then a decision will be made.
Deputy Secretary General of the GUC, Joshua said that Kofi Kapito is Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency. He's also been speaking about this VAT on electricity.
Makoto kania, maybe some television, maybe some fridge, maybe some kania. Value ben and me and cran na me de be ye sadi no me fie no. Wana me de kwa nisika.
Why tax me on the purchase of electricity to power my household? The purpose of VAT does not apply here. CPA and TUC are in agreement in the scrapping of this tax. The president should live according to the tenets of a listening government, like he made us aware, because this tax will harm Ghanaians.
Now the country say, now by 1 year or whatever, Potokase was say, or a listening government. Now listening government, and I wanted to Ghana for 15%, but even a Ghana for you.
Kofi Kapito is going to be joining us shortly, but let's get a bit more into this because clearly organized labor has put their demands and expectations forward. The deadline given to government to come out clean, indicating that it is not going to put this VAT on electricity, is today. Now, aside from that, we're talking about the emissions levy as well, which is also, according to the notice by the Ghana Revenue Authority, expected to take effect from tomorrow, February 1, 2024. We're talking about the Emissions Levy Act 2023, Act 1112, which imposes an annual charge of between 100 and from 60, some others have 70 cedis to 150 Ghana cedis. Initially, the communication was that the vehicles, that's smaller vehicles, saloon cars, we're going to be paying 100 Ghana cedis. But the details, what we're seeing is that you listening to us who drives a smaller vehicle, would be described as a sedan or a saloon vehicle, might be paying more than 100 cedis. Now, the government's hopes of using the tax as a means of encouraging the use of environmentally friendly energy sources for vehicle power is one of them being questioned strongly. Now, this is part of government's commitment to tackling effects of climate change. We'll be engaging the General Secretary of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union shortly, GPRTU, Godfred Abubene, also with the GPRTU. Would get a bus tomorrow shortly on this matter as we go on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. But just to remind you that the Ghana Revenue Authority has already given indication that beginning tomorrow, February 1, this levy will take effect. How is that going to play out? How would it be applied? All of that detail, my colleague Dennis Poberi is with me in the studio. We'll have a quick conversation on this matter. Dennis, what does the detail from the notice of the GRA say?
Well, so this is an announcement or a publication in the dailies to the effect that beginning tomorrow, the GRA will implement that particular tax that you just mentioned, the implementation of Emissions Levy Act, 2003 Act 112. Now, this is to the effect that for vehicles and tricycles, they would pay 75 cedis per annum. Motor vehicles, buses and coaches up to 3,000 cubic centimeters, that's CC, they will pay 300 cedis per annum.
So let's move from one step to the other. So we're talking about tricycles.
Yes, motorcycles and tricycles. They are paying 75 cedis per annum.
So the tricycles we're talking about, these the ones used to
Mahama
Kandu, Aboboya, and those other ones.
All those motors that move on 3 legs, if I may put it that way. So they will be, and then they will pay 75 cedis a year per annum. Motor vehicles, buses and coaches up to 3,000 cc, they will pay 150 cedis per annum. You have motor vehicles, buses and coaches above 3,000 cc. They're also in the same category. They're also paying 300 cedis per annum. And they have cargo trucks and articulator trucks also paying 3,000 per annum. Now, this has been tied to your ability to get a road user certificate. Now, as part of this announcement, the GRA is saying that the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority and other testing centers shall demand evidence of payment of the levy before issuing a road use certificate. So what it essentially means is that once you drive any of these vehicles that we are talking about, and because you require that certificate to be on the road, now if you are going to get that certificate, it's part of the requirements for you to show evidence that you have paid this particular levy before you are issued that certificate. Now, what we are discussing now, just for purposes of background, how we got here and why we are implementing this. You would recall that somewhere in December 2023, the majority leader introduced a bill to Parliament on behalf of the Minister of Finance. This was actually read for the first time on the 19th of December 2023. The purpose for this bill, we understand, was government's attempt to strengthen a global response to the threat of global climate change. This was in accordance with Paris Agreement and United Nations framework and all those things. So the target is to tackle climate change. Now, behind that was to mobilize internal revenue. Mind you, they're also getting funding from elsewhere to support this fight, but there was also the need for them to also raise internal revenue.
In fact, one of the major demands when government officials participated in the COP28 that ended recently in Dubai, was that developing countries, including Ghana, are the least contributors to global emissions, and we are one of the most impacted by the global emissions.
And so that is the more reason why we are getting
that
funding for that. But this also says that while we are getting that funding, while we are getting paid for that, we also need to, in our own small way, raise internal revenue to be able to support this cause. Well, they say this is not just about the money, but it's also for us to encourage eco-friendly technologies and then green energy, because they believe that that is where the world is now moving to. So there has to be a step taken so that we move in that regard. At the end of it is to have an improvement and then in environmental management, and also to control general levels of air pollution and water pollution and all those things. So at the heart of it, it's to do with having an eco-friendly system and also having a very friendly environment. Well, while they were going through the processes, having referred this to the committee level, there were discussions there. We understand at that level that minority in Parliament raised a basic concern there, and that had to do with the impact it would have on the ordinary Ghanaian. They, at that point, seemed to be concerned about how ordinary Ghanaians are going to cough out this amount of money to be able to pay, knowing that we are already paying, making some considerable payments when it comes to taxes and levies. But all in all, by majority recommended that this particular then was a bill be passed into law, and eventually it was passed into law. That's how we have it now. And now this announcement is to effectuate that bill that was passed into law on that particular occasion.
Dennis, stay with me, because a number of groups have already registered their displeasure about the decision to implement this levy, despite the concerns that it would have on the impact it would have on the ordinary Ghanaian. Bear in mind that commercial vehicles, trotros, taxis, and even ride-hailing services are also going to have to pay for this vehicle emissions levy. And just so you know, if you just joined us, motorcycles and tricycles from tomorrow, if you're going to be renewing your roadworthy certificate, DVLA will be demanding some 75 cedis more from you every year for this vehicle emissions levy. Motor vehicles, that's vehicles and buses and coaches up to 3 liters. If your engine is 3.0, okay, that's the 3,000 that Dennis was talking about. So 3.0, you're going to be paying 150 Ghana cedis. And if your engine capacity is more than 3.0 and above, or above 3.0, talking about 300 cedis. So there are smaller vehicles, saloon vehicles that have the engine capacity of 3.5 and 4.0. They're going to have to cough out what? 300 Ghana cedis. 300
Ghana cedis per annum. Then the bigger ones will also, so 75 for the tricycles. The smaller vehicles will pay 150, and then the bigger vehicles. Just so we break down whatever this 3,000 cc means.
Absolutely.
It means that with the smaller vehicles, you would pay 150. The bigger ones, that include the cargo trucks and the articulated trucks, they pay 300 cedis per annum. And Alfred, just to add that, it is estimated that for this fiscal year, this particular levy will bring in some 441 million Ghana cedis, and this money is expected to be paid into the consolidated fund for government expenditure. Just so we know where the money is going to.
Well, anyway, Godfred Abobere is the General Secretary of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, is joining us. So, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening, my brother. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Now, according to the GRA, this vehicle emissions levy is supposed to take effect from tomorrow. And what that means is that your members would have to prepare to pay between 150 to 300 cedis, depending on the engine capacity, if it's 3.0 or above 3.0. Now, you had earlier raised some objections about this, but GRA says it's going to take effect tomorrow. What are you going to do?
That information had not reached us. That is going to take effect from tomorrow. We are not aware about that. But the fact is that we had raised this concern early enough, somewhere around November, and because of that, we did submit a petition to the Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament, and the copy to the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, raising our objection on this particular decision to let us vehicles or commercial vehicles pay emission tax when already we are paying some kind of levy on the pollution, sanitation and pollution levy, where every vehicle that buys fuel pays some element of tax on that. So this matter had reached its level, and then we discussed it, even this some kind of press release on that matter, thinking that we're going to actually generate some review to law affairs across board. So this matter reached the Minister of Transport, and then he invited us to a meeting. Now, what we discussed there was basically we don't rush when a law is passed. We don't immediately rush into talking about fair increment. We have to wait till the day of implementation of the law. Then that the law, the effort or the effect that the law exerts on us, then we then do the calculations and to know by what margin that are we suggesting to increase our fares to mitigate that. So the meeting with the minister, we discussed all this around. So what we concluded at that meeting was that we should submit to them a list of the factors that we think, including these two new taxes. I'm not limited to only the emission tax, but there's another one which has to be the extension of VAT on non-life insurance policies, which that component has serious effect on the insurance premium that we are going to pay. So we did all that. So we had submitted that those factors proposals to the minister. But for this week, he's engaged. He has a funeral. So we have scheduled to meet next week after the funeral. Then we will now meet a roundtable discussion and then see whether by what calculation, by what margin are we suggesting that the effect of these taxes will compel us to increase our fares. So that when that one is reached and then we agree to increase by a certain particular margin, whether by 10, like we were proposing 20%, if it is that we narrow down to 10% or 5%, that meeting will tell. But the increment, we are not only aware that it's going to be effective tomorrow. We are not aware.
I see. Well, I'm telling you that there's a notice from the GRA. In fact, my producer has just indicated that he's forwarded that notice to you. But essentially, what the details of this GRA notice says is that the application or the implementation of this tax takes effect from tomorrow, February 1, vehicle emissions levy. And they've given the categories: motorcycles and tricycles, 75 cedis per year; motor vehicles, buses and coaches, which primarily forms your membership base. That's for if your engine capacity is up to 3.0. You have to prepare to pay 150 Ghana cedis. Then motor vehicles above 3.0 liters engine capacity, 300 Ghana cedis a year. That is the detail of the GRA notice.
This is just a shortfall on the part of the GRA. I think, I don't know what prevents them from writing officially to us, indicating these same factors that you have mentioned there, so that we can now even be aware and then disseminate them to our members before its effective date. I don't know what prevents them. So, like I said, we are aware about that particular bill passing into law, but when it's going to be effective is what we didn't know. But like Igor also mentioned earlier, those particular taxes have been forwarded to the minister, waiting for him to come back from the funeral. Then we'll discuss them and know if they affect it, and then the effect of that tax, how much we are as operators will also adjust on our fares to mitigate our suffering.
So what that means essentially is that as the GRA has given notice that this levy, the vehicle emissions levy, takes effect from tomorrow, we should prepare for an increase in transport fares.
Of course, exactly. Because that was the main contention why the initial announcement and press releases were all about fare increment. And now that it's real that it's going to take effect maybe tomorrow, that means that all other operators will be aware, and that the meeting we are going to embark on his return will discuss basically on what margin should we also adjust our fares. That one I can't pretend.
So is this a position that all the other transport unions hold, apart from the GPRTU?
Well, it's all other transport unions. Which of them? I don't know which one.
The Progressive Transport Union, and then also
we all went
drivers and so on.
Exactly. So we all went to a meeting with the minister, and then Protua Cooperative, I want on an umbrella body called the GRCCC. So when we went there, the decision was that we should go back, and then the GRCCC should also go back, and then come back forward to them. Our proposal, the factors that we are mentioning now, we should come back to them and submit them, and then when we all return, we'll discuss what other factors we think are the indicators for us to do fare increment. So they are all aware. All other unions are aware.
And
yes.
we're also getting the indication that motor insurance premiums are also expected to be increased by more than 30% beginning this year. The increase is also due to a 21% increase in VAT that will be imposed on non-life products from January 2024, in addition to a 10% increase in motor insurance premiums. Are you aware of this?
So that's the area which we are saying that the normal acts affect them at our blind side. We are aware that they are going to extend VAT onto non-life insurance. That one I think I mentioned that earlier.
Indeed.
But as to the VAT, which we talk about 15%. Now, if you are saying that 21%, that's where the confusion would be. If it's about VAT, I don't think the VAT is about 50%. But what you are saying suggests that's a different component or different way of taxing the insurance premium than the VAT alone.
Well, Mr. Abre, at least from the major takeaway from this conversation is that as the application of this vehicle emissions levy starts tomorrow, the people listening to us on commercial vehicles should brace ourselves for an increase in transport fares.
Certainly, that's a fundamental fact.
Okay. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us here. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's the General Secretary of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, Godfred Abilberry there. So there you have it. You recall, Dennis, that they intended to increase transport fares about a week ago, and they were impressed upon by the Transport Minister to suspend this intended increase in transport fares, awaiting certain negotiations.
Yes.
Now the GRA has given this notice that the vehicle emissions levy, if the implementation starts tomorrow, the GPRTU and other drivers' unions have also given indication, get ready for an increase in transport fares.
But Alfred, there's a cause for concern. Because when you look at the figures here, so these people would ordinarily be between the 150 cedis per annum, and then worst case scenario, 300 cedis per annum. That would mean that they will fall between the motor vehicles, the buses, and then the coaches category.
Yeah.
If this is the only reason they are increasing prices, let's look at it in realistic terms. What it means is that 300 cedis, if they are paying that per annum, they pay less than a cedi in a day. Do you get where I'm coming from? If there are other considerations to increase price, that may be fair. But if they say it is the only reason why they're increasing fares,
then it's questionable.
I mean, because on a daily basis, they'll be paying less than a cedi for this particular levy. 300 cedis divided by 365 days. That's to say that they work every day. Even if you divide it by 300 days in a year, they'll be paying 1 cedi a day. I mean,
but guess what? You're looking at it in the segregated terms, right? But if you look at the quantum effect that would have, that's where their concern is. In addition to, for instance, as we're learning now, that motor insurance premiums are also going to go
up. That's a
distinct
conversation.
By more than 30%. I'm looking at, he makes the point about the quantum effect, all of these combined. Yes,
but he also made a point that once this levy has kicked in, Ghanaians should be ready for an increase in transport fares. If it is together with the insurance premium and other things, that's fair to say. But for this, it comes with a cost implication. But I'm only saying that this cost implication can be something that at least...
Well, we'll see. In the coming days, the engagement that they say they're going to have with the transport minister, who is attending a funeral now, as a result of that, they would have to wait till he comes back from the funeral before any determination will be made. But let's go back to our earlier story. Dennis, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dennis Poberi, with running through the statement from the Ghana Revenue Authority on this, the application of this emission tax on vehicles. As we've given you the various categories earlier, we indicated to you that the Trade Union Congress has also given government up until the end of day today, close of day today, to come out clearly that it is not going to implement this VAT on electricity. So the taxes hitting the consumer or the ordinary Ghanaian from all angles. So this VAT on electricity has generated a lot of reaction, especially from both consumer groups and also labor unions. And you, the Ghanaian people listening to me right now, Kofi Kapito is the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency, and he's not mince words on this matter. He's joining us on the telephone. Kofi, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening to you.
Good afternoon, Alfred.
Great. Now, first off, it's clear, at least, that up until now, the government hasn't come clean on its intentions whether or not to go ahead with this VAT on electricity. The only statement we have from the ministry is that they are appealing to organized labor and stakeholders like yourself, Consumer Protection Agency, ECG, and NETCO, to exercise restraint to facilitate constructive dialogue towards a quick resolution of the impasse. What impasse really has to be resolved in here?
Alfred, when the previous gentleman was talking about, you see, we live in a country where even things that are supposed to help us, things that should benefit the Ghanaians, in terms of information, our government decided to do certain things for Ghanaians. Government behaves as if it's a national security thing. Look, all these revenue increases and VAT and taxes, how come it has become a surprise for every Ghanaian? Okay, look, maybe government needs to raise taxes, but there's a better way of dialoguing, a better way of bringing people on board for us to support you. I sounded this alarm on City FM about more than a week ago, and I said it's a ridiculous increase to be burdened by 15% of what is referred to as value-added tax. If you look at the law, which was passed in 2013, residential consumers were exempted. It was only for manufacturing and production, because you know why? When they produce or when they do all those things, they add the VAT. So when you and I go to the store, when you and I go and purchase, we pay the VAT already. Alfred, are you understanding me?
So the 2013 law that was approved by Parliament actually exempted residential consumers.
Yes.
So why have residential consumers been included in this new the modalities for this tariff?
I'll tell you why. Government decided to go to IMF, right? Government going to IMF. IMF said, listen, if you want money from us, we've looked at your books. There is a law that you pass that says collect that from electricity users. This is for service users. When you buy electricity, you don't use it for any service. It's for consumption. So why is somebody going to take you and I to an IMF program for IMF to give us a condition that they should come and collect from residential when the law excluded residential people? Okay, so it is a fault of the finance minister. Look, Ghanaians are overtaxed. Look, you know what, VAT, and this is where I have a challenge. How come VAT is increased in so many different ways? I thought that VAT is supposed to be 15%, ordinary. Is it 17.5%?
No, so that's
the question is
15%. It was for 12.5, increased to 15%.
Yeah. So if government wants to increase VAT, government should have increased VAT maybe by 5, maybe by whatever across board. You don't do segregation. This one 15, this one 20, this one 30. For what? That is why the challenge is. Because in any civilized country, taxes are increased cross board. If it's 1%, it's 1% on taxes. If it's 10%, it's 10% on taxes. Why are we having segregated tax regime in this country? It doesn't make any sense. That is why the ECG is saying that, including NETCO, that they don't know how they are even going to collect this revenue, because it doesn't make any sense. And TUC is 100%. Look, Ghanaians, I'm taking this opportunity, and I'm glad that at least the letter that you read said that whether the minister or government is willing to have inclusive stakeholders engagement, so that we can tell government that it is wrong for them even to think about putting. They should go and look at the law again. How come the law was passed in 2013? Nana has been, or the president has been in government for what? 7 going on 8 years. So how come all of a sudden that you have decided to implement a law that has been in existence since 2013?
There's a question, a very, very important fundamental question that you ask there. So in the finance ministry is asking for engagement with stakeholders. In what form are you expecting this engagement to take, taking into consideration the impact that this would have on consumers, which you represent?
Alfred, as for the impact, not just me, all stakeholders. I'm sure even government himself or herself has realized that this is a bad thing for them to do. Okay, you've increased. Look, truck is going to go up. Okay, VIP is going to go up, because if you're going to pass, they are not Father Christmas. After they will pass it on to you and I. And you know what? The danger about this electricity. Do you know by March, April, QRC is going to look at their automatic adjustments.
True.
And automatically, I can guarantee you, electricity will be increased, because per every quarter, that thing should be viewed. Normally, it was only just in recent times, the last quarter of 2023, that they gave a savings of 1.5 to electricity consumers. When they increase by double digits. But when they are reducing it, they reduce it by a single digit. Doesn't make any sense. Mathematically, it's not adding up. The pockets of the average Ghanaian. You are a TV station. I beg you, take your cameras out there and go and listen to the views of Ghanaians about these challenges and hardship and difficulties that Ghanaians are going through. Then you sit somewhere without even proper, and this is a funny thing, without proper consultation, you just write a letter and give an instruction. I'm glad that they say they are going to look at it again, and maybe we can find a better way of dealing with this situation.
I thank you so much, Kofi. Appreciate your time as always. Kofi Kapito is Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency. Let's stay a bit further on this matter. Nana Mosi II is the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute for Energy Security, IES. Nana, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Good evening to you. So this is the response from the Ministry of Finance concerning this 15% on the electricity. In fact, let's clarify this, because I'm also reading that this VAT to be imposed on electricity is at 21% and not 15%. Can you clarify that for me, Nana?
Thanks for having me, Alfred. Good evening to you, to your listeners as well. We get an indication that ECG and government are still engaging, and that the VAT component that was projected to be slapped on the city is yet to take effect. And so we can wait until they are done with their negotiation, because for us at now, they can't tell how they want to even effect it. Is that you are taking the VAT when you buy you are paying beforehand as a prepaid customer, or they will wait for you to consume the power to determine how much, and that's in terms of quantity of kilowatt consumed before it is slapped. And so for now, Alfred, I will encourage you and your listeners to wait until government and ECG are done with those engagements, so we can zoom into the discussion.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at even the ECG itself, and it's important that you make reference to the ECG and government's engagement, because the managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Jibrik Mahama, is saying that the law regarding this implementation of the value-added tax on the electricity is vague. And this was in reaction to some questions that were asked of him. He is insisting that the framers of the Constitution did not explicitly state the objectives the law was trying to achieve, making it difficult for the ECG to carry out implementation of some of these VAT and others that's come into the fore. So is this one that you would agree that this whole law, which was approved in 2013, which we're learning now that the original law that was approved in 2013 excluded households, consumers of electricity, and now that has been, households have been included, that law is vague. That's the ECG's position, Nana.
Exactly the case, Alfred. That's why I am saying that ECG has taken upon itself to engage the government to clarify and probably, ensure that portion of vagueness is dealt with, so we all have clarity as to how we want to implement and who and which class of consumers this VAT will affect, and how it will be computed and implemented. And so we are not at the point of implementation until those thorny issues are clarified. However, whether it will amount to 15% or 22.1% or whatever, if it's implemented, it will impact on consumers, it will affect their disposable income. It may tempt other consumers to bypass the system because they might struggle to pay. And also it's going to be a disincentive for investment in the sector, because people will begin to look at other alternative ways of meeting their electricity needs. And it could be by resorting to the use of generators or renewable energy, which you can count on solar as we speak today. And so for us at IES, we don't subscribe to any VAT imposition on electricity, because it is retrogressive and counterproductive in the end.
Now, but beyond this, I've just received a statement from you. You're projecting an increase in fuel prices for the first pricing window in February, which takes effect, all things being equal, from tomorrow. What has contributed to this?
Well, I just got indication from analysts at IES Economic and Fuel Dex that international price of fuel has gone up, gasoline has gone up, gas oil has gone up, and of course, LPG price has gone up on the international market. In view of that, it could impact on local market prices. To make the matter worse, the cedi stability against the US dollar, the greenback, is also called into question. And that's to say that the cedi is depreciating against the US dollar. And so these two key variables, international price and the value of the cedi, make that reasoning the price of fuel on the domestic market could go up. And of course, there's intervention from government to forestall that.
Right, but is there any idea of the margin we should be expecting?
Between 2 to 3% for both diesel and petrol. 2 to 3% rise. This is the indication I get.
And in monetary terms?
It means that if you're buying fuel for, let's say, 11.5 cedis per liter, you'll be compared to pay something around 11.9 cedis per liter.
11 cedis 90 pesos from 11 cedis 50 pesos.
Exactly.
That's 40% per liter. That's multiplied by 4.5. That's an increase. It's worrying.
That's something we need to bear with because we are exposed to international market prices. We don't produce any substantial amount of fuel in Ghana, and we've lost on handle on our own cedi strength against the US dollar.
And I appreciate your time as always. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And I'm the seventh is the executive director of the Institute for Energy Security, IES. There was just received a statement from them giving details of a projected increase in fuel prices. That's petrol and diesel. We'll give you details of that shortly in the business news. Michael Budo is standing by. But before we get into business, the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, is urging Parliament and government to iron out the financial bottlenecks after passing the anti-LGBTQ plus bill on the public purse. The former president, who said he is against the activities of LGBTQ persons, said the private members bill in its nature must not impose any financial burden on the taxpayer. The NDC flag bearer, who is currently touring the Eastern region, argues his faith as a Christian does not allow him to support LGBTQ+.
Me duty in my faith is against LGBTQ. Me Assemblies of God me. If we say the faith I have, empany say bema bewari bema oba bewari oba. Bill a war parliament. Omunyam passing, but say aban actually says omu passing president on sign. If he say the attorney general can say bibi a private members motion. Obetimi a pass a bill with a private members motion, but enise edekabia ebeto aban so. And based on that technicality, President Asegna said seba on signing. In terms of the idea between Parliament and the executive, omoshe na omokan. Ebia some bill normal it puts a charge on government na omoye no free. Then it opens the way for the president to be happy to sign the agreement. And so me personally binging this and I a man is a man, a woman is a woman.
That's John Dramani Mahama there. Says a man is a man, a woman is a woman. While we are at it, higher education may be the key to improving your sexual desirability for men. The 2022 Ghana Statistical Services Ghana Demographic and Health Survey report has revealed that as men scale up the academic ladder, the probability of them having more sexual partners is higher. For instance, amongst uneducated men, 14.5% had more than 2 partners, while 18.6% of them had the sexual partners with a person who was neither their wife nor lived with them. Amongst men who had terminated the education at the primary level, 14.9% had more than 2 sexual partners, while 29.9% of them had sex with a person who was neither their wife nor lived with them. Also, in this same report, Michael, you should be getting into this. The 2022 Ghana Democratic and Health Survey report has revealed that 2 in every 10 married Ghanaian men have skipped the marital bed for some extramarital frolicking. According to the survey, 17.5% of married men in Ghana have 2 or more partners. 17.5%. That certainly doesn't include you.
Yeah, but I think it's an impressive figure. If 17.5% out of the total population are unfaithful, I think that's more than a pass mark. Trust me.
We'll get into business with Michael Ogbodo. Stay with us.
Are you stressed from a hard day's work? Looking to de-stress and relax over soothing music and soft chats? Then join Mia Kofa on Wind Down. 3 FM. Keeping it cool, easy, nice and breezy like that. Okay, starting with Kenny Rogers. Write your name across my heart.
Write your name across my heart.
Every Monday to Wednesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and on Thursdays at 8 to 9 p.m. as I play your favorite songs on your favorite dial, 3FM 92.7. Wind Down with Mia Kofa, your smooth operator on your...
Well, hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. Coming up this evening, fuel prices projected to increase marginally at the pumps starting tomorrow. I am Michael Obodu and I'll bring you details of that and more shortly. Please stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with us. Straight into our top story, as the Institute for Energy Security, IES, has forecasted fuel prices in Ghana are set to rise slightly starting tomorrow, February 1, for the first pricing window of the month. This increase is largely driven by a 2% rise in international fuel prices and a slight depreciation of the Ghana cedi. Drivers and consumers can expect to see prices of petrol, diesel and LPG go up marginally. The recent dip in the cedi's value has amplified the impact of the international price increase, contributing to the higher pump prices. Adam Yakubu is a research analyst with the Institute for Energy Security, IES.
This comes as a result of petroleum price increments on the international market as monitored by the Global Standard & Poor. Specifically, petrol price on the international market did go up by 2.93%. Diesel prices went up by 4.79% and LPG prices went up by 2.44% respectively. On the Ghana cedi performance, the cedi did depreciate by 1.18% against the United States dollar, closing the trading window at 12 cedis, 16 pesos to $1. Putting these factors together, the IES is projecting price of petrol could increase by 2%, 3% for the price of diesel, and 2% for the price of LPG going into the first pricing window for February 2024. Barring any policy intervention.
So that was Adam Yakubu. He's a research analyst with the Institute for Energy Security, IES. Now, away from that, the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies says it expects the Bank of Ghana to further reduce the monetary policy rate to ensure cheaper access to credit. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana was recently reduced the policy rate to 29%, but the association believes a lower rate would ensure more business growth. Speaking to 3 Business, Executive Secretary of the association, Trinidad Kodua Boache, stated that higher rate is imposing major challenge for businesses.
Even though we're expecting a much lower reduction from the 30%, but the 29, we think is a step in the right direction, and we are expecting that the various policy measures put in place will yield the necessary outcome, especially if you look at the headline inflation that is declining. We are expecting that we will see more decline to achieve the target, and if this is done, it will be in the interest of all our consumers. When you have a very high policy rate, it's also credit lines that they also have. It also have other influence or effect on other credit lines that you have with your various credits, which also is very high.
So that was Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, Trinidad Kodua Boache speaking. Now, away from that, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana has expressed worry about the slow implementation of the Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2. The executive director of the association, Dr. Charles Nyaba, is concerned that the situation could impact the 2024 farming season negatively. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture last year rolled out the Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2 to replace the PFJ Phase 1 due to some failures.
We were consulted, we had engagement with the ministry, a lot of inputs and the recommendations took place. Aggregators were asked to apply, of which we all did. But my brother, as we said, if you ask me what is happening in PG2, I wouldn't be able to point out that this is what is going on. Farmers are so desperate to hear from the ministry what they should expect, but we haven't gotten any news. So for me, what I can say is that PFG2 is here to commence implementation. And maybe the minister is waiting to do the implementation in 2024. If that's the case, my only appeal is that it should be as soon as possible, because the 2024 farming season for the southern sector will start in March.
So that was Dr. Charles Nyaba, the Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please visit our website. It's 3news.com. I am Michael Obudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next, the sports, and Billy is on standby, looking all sharp.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Shen. Let's start off from the Africa Cup of Nations, where Nigeria defender William Troost Ekong has reiterated that the Super Eagles want to win the title this year. Now, Nigeria are set to face Angola in the quarterfinals this Friday.
I think so far so good, just because we are where we are. We managed to qualify now to the quarter-final, but yeah, we're not satisfied yet, because I think we said from the start we want to win the AFCON, and yeah, there's still a long road to go, but I like the way how it's lining up now. I think the team is improving game by game, and most of all, I think the team is ready to work hard. I think you can really see a spirit of determination, and yeah, I think that's our it's going to be the base of all of our performances, and yeah.
That is the vice captain of the Nigeria national team, William Troost Ekong. Now, Aliou Cisse is set to leave his role as head coach of Senegal following a shock round of 16 exit at the AFCON. The reasons for his impending exit is reportedly a personal one. The 47-year-old has managed the Teranga Lions for 9 years and led the team to the 2021 AFCON title. Now, the Egyptian FA has released a statement apologizing to fans for the team's performance at the AFCON. They were knocked out in the round of 16 by DR Congo on penalties. Now, this is a part of the statement that was released by the Egyptian FA. It says that the board will hold a meeting on Sunday, the 4th of February 2024, to study the technical, medical and administrative reports and the reports of the head of mission and the supervisor of the team to take appropriate decisions, and the federation will spare no effort to look at everything possible for the benefit of the national teams in the coming period. Let's move on to Europe, where Liverpool are set to battle Chelsea in a blockbuster Premier League fixture tonight. Ahead of the game, Mauricio Pochettino gave an update on the fitness levels of his team.
It's good news that can be involved. I think Malo Gusto and Christophe can be on the squad for tomorrow. Travel with us, with the team. That is a good news. And see, always we are waiting for the last moment. Is some surprise, but at the moment, yes, it's good news to have two players, recover two players, and see if maybe why not to arrive Nico Jackson for tomorrow and be involved also on the game.
But Christoph,
by way of updates, Nicholas Jackson is not expected to be in the squad for the fixture tonight because he was in Senegal at 12 p.m. Dakar time per the instructions of his head coach Aliou Cissé, who instructed him and the rest of his teammates to be with their families before travelling to their respective clubs. Now, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp believes his club is a big one and his players are still willing to fight for the team. Now, Klopp is expected to leave Liverpool at the end of the season.
Players love to be here. Don't forget that. It's not that they are out on 1 foot out. That they want to know a little bit about perspective, but that's there and it will happen, and it will happen especially behind the scenes. And the only annoying part is you, because everything is.
That was Jurgen Klopp, the manager of Liverpool. Before I do go, here are the other PL fixtures for tonight. Manchester City will be hosting Burnley and Tottenham will be playing against Brentford. That brings an end to the sports segment here on a 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shen, and up next is entertainment with Akofa.
Hello and thank you for keeping your dial locked on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Akofa. It's now time for the entertainment news segment powered by 3 Entertainment. Let's commence with Ghanaian artist Black Sheriff. He has been nominated for the Best Outstanding Duo, Group or Collaboration category at the 55th National Association for the Advancement of Colored People NAACP Image Awards. The ceremony of this year's NAACP Image Awards is slated for Saturday, March 16, 2024. Now, Black Sheriff earned the spot alongside his collaborators, Dreamville's American rapper, Baze, and Nigerian producer, singer Kel P for their soundtrack for the box office hit film Creed 3, a 2023 American sports drama produced and directed by Michael B. Jordan, who played the lead role as Adonis Creed in the movie. Now, speaking on the African nominees for this year, Mondi Twala, Senior Vice President of Paramount Africa and peer lead BET International, said, "We take pride in shining a spotlight on Black legacy and excellence as a conduit for honoring authentic stories and recognizing groundbreaking work in film, television, theater, music, and literature. We have a global array of African artists, including Burna Boy, Davido, Thames, Ashake, Libianca, Black Sheriff, Loja, Omar Lay, and Arya Star, securing notes in the music categories." Well, that ends it for the entertainment news here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Akofa. Thank you very much for joining us. The 3FM Drive continues.